WrestleVotes tweeted this week, a source of theirs stressed that while nothing is official, there is a working idea for the top of the card at WrestleMania next year. And right now, that idea looks to be, for the top 3 matches, Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against Bill Goldberg, Edge wrestles Randy Orton, and a triple threat match, I presume, for the WWE Championship with Drew McIntyre, Keith Lee, and Brock Lesnar. They also said the question of how many people may or may not be allowed to attend the show will also play a role in what the final card looks like, because there could be some matches they want to do that are really, they think are really big matches, but they don't want to do it in a mostly empty stadium. So they would rather wait until they can get, a building full of 20,000 people or a stadium full of 50,000 people and not do a stadium show with 15,000 people all spaced out. Now, you take these things about early WrestleMania plans with a grain of salt, because these people don't know what they're doing from one week to the next. How many times do we have to hear about stories of Vince McMahon rewriting scripts and people don't know what they're doing on the show that night until 7:53 p.m.? These people don't know what they're doing from one week to the next. So I am skeptical that they have anything concrete mapped out for WrestleMania next year. But let's assume that these matches are being considered right now. And honestly, they're not that far off, because Goldberg went public this week with some comments. And, Edge and Randy Orton, I think, has been expected pretty much all year. I think most people assume that we're going to get Edge and Orton Part 3. So these matches really are not that far-fetched. But you look at this card, if this is accurate, and basically what they're doing is they're redoing the WrestleMania 36 card at WrestleMania 37. Only this time it's going to be outdoors, hopefully they think in front of fans. And Keith Lee is thrown into the mix. That's about it. That's about the only difference. Now, Edge and Orton, like I said, was always expected. I don't really have a great desire to see it again, honestly. I don't. We saw it at WrestleMania. We saw it at Backlash. Edge won the first one. Orton won the second one. So, we got to have a third one, right? We got to have the rubber match. No, we don't. But their first 2 matches took place in front of exactly 0 fans. I'm not counting the wrestlers that were at ringside for the second one. So this time they would be able to do the match that they wanted to do in March. They would be able to go to Tampa. They would be able to do it in a big stadium outdoors. Edge can come out, get his big altar bridge entrance, and they would have some people in the stadium. I would like to just move past this. I would like to see Edge have, matches and be in the ring with someone other than just Randy Orton. And the name that comes to mind for me, and somebody who apparently is not factored into WrestleMania plans this early, is AJ Styles. He's a man with no obvious WrestleMania match at this point. So yes, it will probably be Edge and Orton as long as Edge is all healed up from his injury. But if they got away from this and did Edge and AJ Styles instead, I would have more interest in that. Now, we already saw Drew McIntyre pin Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania this year, 4 Claymore kicks. Why the hell do we need to see this match again? The answer is we don't. We don't need to see this match again. This is all assuming that they even sign Brock Lesnar to a new deal, because right now, remember, he is not under contract to WWE. He is a free agent. Throwing Keith Lee into the match, it does make the match more interesting, but they could also save McIntyre for Roman Reigns. Or even maybe a title defense against Sheamus, which they're building to very nicely. I almost think that they got to be careful that they don't kind of build to it a little too quickly. But that absolutely could be the championship match of WrestleMania. And instead, you do Keith Lee. If you can bring Brock back, you do Keith Lee one-on-one with Brock Lesnar. I love their little interaction at the Royal Rumble match this year. So I think a one-on-one match between those two guys could be fun. But, if this triple threat becomes a thing, this is the match that I find the most interesting of the 3 that were mentioned. And I think it could be an excellent match. Brock has been part of some excellent multi-man matches before. Brock Lesnar is part of one of my favorite triple threat matches of all time in WWE. Right? He doesn't have to do much. You can take him out of the match. He can lay down and he can take a rest. And then Drew and Keith Lee can do most of the work. And then boom, here comes Brock. As long as Brock doesn't go over, I think we're kind of beyond that at this point. But then we get to Roman Reigns and Bill Goldberg. Goldberg has stated before that his deal with WWE runs through, I think, the end of 2022, and he is obligated to do 2 matches per year. I guess they could always pay him to do more, but he's obligated to 2 matches per year. I'm sure at least one of which would be in Saudi Arabia. They were going to do Roman Reigns against Goldberg this year at WrestleMania, but Roman pulled himself off the card. So I figured they would eventually do this match at some point. Goldberg all but confirmed it on The Bump this week. They had him on as a guest to promote his new WWE Untold documentary, which I actually think it debuts today on the network. It's about the streak. So they had him on to talk about it. And this is what Goldberg had to say about Roman Reigns. He said, he backed out on me at WrestleMania. He stole my move God knows how long ago. While he continues to perform perform the move at a subpar level. Let's be perfectly honest. I'm the dude who delivers the spear, and I don't think he understands what it's like until I deliver one to him. So Roman, it's coming, and I'm coming for you. I may be old, I may be gray, but I am still Goldberg. I want to talk about something great that I saw on Talking Smack yesterday. Paul Heyman was once again on the show, co-hosting with Kayla Braxton, and they had Big E stop by the set as a guest. And Paul Heyman is sitting there and he's staring at Big E, and he is endlessly singing this man's praises, and he's talking about all of his potential. And then he ended with a question. A statement first, and then a question. He looked at Big E dead in the eye, and he said, you have to accept in your heart that the New Day will only be a footnote in the story of the greatness of Big E. And then he said, if I may ask a question, when was the last time you saw Roman Reigns in the ring and anybody even bothered to mention the Shield? And Big E just sat there speechless and didn't know how to respond. And I bring this up because there are so many more interesting matches for Roman Reigns at WrestleMania that do not involve Bill Goldberg. The fact that they still want to fall back on Goldberg for this match because they both used the spear and one went to Georgia and the other went to Georgia Tech, as if any of us who didn't go to Georgia or Georgia Tech or live in Georgia even give a shit about that, is a perfect example of why we look at these WrestleMania cards every year, and I have to listen to people say, well, Goldberg's a bigger star, Solomonster, he appeals to a more casual audience. Let me ask you a question. How many years in a row are you going to give me that lame excuse before it finally hits you, before like a bolt of lightning to the brain, that there is something wrong here? The fact that you have to keep telling me that every single year and it never seems to change. Year after year, like a pull string doll. Do you not see something wrong with that? Why is that? If that's the case, why is that? It's because they do a piss poor job of making the younger guys feel as special as the older guys. And look, part of it is nostalgia. And I'm all for a little bit of nostalgia. But Bill Goldberg has been back now for 4 fucking years. He won the Universal title twice. He embarrassed The Fiend. He almost paralyzed The Undertaker. We are past the point of nostalgia with Bill Goldberg. Goldberg can have a place on the show. That place is not in the main event of WrestleMania. At least The Rock, you're going to look at a guy from the past who's almost 50 years old. At least The Rock, right, has this built-in, ready-to-go, perfect storyline setup for a match with Roman Reigns, but Vince McMahon supposedly does not want to do the match. I don't know, The Rock could do it anyway. We've already talked about this, all of his obligations and insurance and this and that. But supposedly Vince McMahon is not too keen on doing the match at WrestleMania next year because he wants there to be fans in the stadium, and he wants more than 10,000 people in the stadium. He doesn't want to do Rock and Roman Reigns in front of 5 or 10 or 15,000 people in a giant football stadium. So, fine. Goldberg has 2 matches per year, right, that he's supposedly committed for. Do the match at the Royal Rumble. And save WrestleMania as a spot for a match against somebody like Big E. Or Daniel Bryan. Or even Drew McIntyre. As great as their match was at Survivor Series, I want to see it again. That's 3 current roster names I just gave you. All of whom would make perfectly fine opponents for Roman Reigns. The only reason I see not to do the match with Big E at WrestleMania is because they don't want Roman to lose. It's very possible Roman goes to WrestleMania and he retains the Universal Championship and they keep the belt on him for another 6 months. If they want to hold off on the match for that reason, maybe for SummerSlam, okay, I can understand that. Then it makes sense to run with somebody like Daniel Bryan, who does not have to win, but he is a fan favorite that people are going to root for and get behind with a backstory that aligns perfectly with the backstory of Roman Reigns. You could take this thing all the way back to 2015 and save the Big E match, because it looks like Big E may be going after the Intercontinental title right now. It doesn't mean he's going to win it, but okay, fine. Then save the Big E match, if you're not ready to take the title just yet, off of Roman Reigns. Goldberg also gave an interview to Bleacher Report. Said that Randy Orton is another name that he would like to get into the ring with. You want Goldberg on the WrestleMania card? Here's what you can do. Put Edge with AJ Styles and put Randy Orton with Bill Goldberg. And then that way you get 2 big matches out of it instead of 1. Leave the championship match for somebody more interesting. Leave the championship match for somebody who's actually on the fucking roster. Have a little faith. Have a little faith in your own roster. And trust in them. And maybe one of these days, just maybe one of these days, those people will appeal to the casual audience the way that apparently everybody loves to say all the old guys do. Yeah, they appeal to the mainstream audience so much that maybe they'll pop 1 rating on TV and then things go right back to the way they were. I question that, by the way. I want to see the proof of that. That there's this great mass appeal for people like Bill Goldberg after he's already been back for 4 years. It was there at the beginning. There was an excitement, I think, at the beginning about Goldberg being back and getting back in the ring with Brock Lesnar. That was 4 years ago. Am I still going to be getting emails from people 5 years from now when Goldberg's been back for a decade telling me, well, there's nostalgia? That's not what nostalgia is. Nostalgia is you bring somebody back, you have like a reunion tour or a comeback tour or 1 or 2 appearances. There's a reason why when Hulk Hogan would come back, he wasn't around for very long. He would come back, he'd be back for a few months, and then he would disappear. Because he was smart enough to know that if I stick around, brother, the numbers aren't going to be so hot anymore. People aren't going to be as excited to see me. So I'll step away, and then 9 months from now, I'll come back again, and I'll get to, everybody gets all excited to see me again. He was smart. That's nostalgia. Nostalgia will only take you so far. 4 years he's been back. 2 world titles. At what point do you say enough is enough? I have nothing against seeing the old guys being used. I think there could be a spot for them. They don't have as many of them left as they used to. Every year that goes by, whether Chris Jericho leaves and goes to AEW or The Undertaker retires, Triple H, when was the last time we saw Triple H wrestle a match? Right? Probably one of the Saudi shows. So there are fewer and fewer of these names left. But I do think you can find a place for them. I have nothing against seeing Sting on AEW television. But I would be sitting here telling you the same exact thing if Tony Khan booked Sting against Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship. Enough. Let's move on.